Hello, my fellow book people. Today I'm coming to you with a tag. This is the Get to Know You tag, which was originally done by Paperchains, who unfortunately doesn't seem to have any videos left on the on her channel anymore. So she tagged Untitled for now, Beck. So I'll put her video down below, and I'll also put the ubiquitous Steve Donoghue video down below because he's done everything. So yes, this are 12 questions all about books to help you get to know me if you want to know about me. Whatever. Here are the questions. What's your favorite book? I've done the top 10s booktube tag, and I'm gonna go a different way this time because it's like, what's your favorite book? And it's like, thinking favorite book, it's like, okay, what book have I read the most or listened to the most? And that would be The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, that and probably the many other books in that series, that and his Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, which is the other Douglas Adams series. And it's just like somebody I've read. I listened to some authors that Douglas Adams wrote very few books, but those books kept on getting read over and over again, which I guess, you know, it's a labor-saving technique there if you can pull it off. Not many writers can, but yeah, he definitely did. And he also made a practice of making sure. I think this started out as the radio play, then was a book, then was a TV, then was a movie which we shall not talk of. So yes, it's had many iterations, and if you can track down Douglas Adams himself reading these, it's worth it, because I like it when the author reads them, even though I think Stephen Fry does it, and you can't sneeze at that. But Douglas Adams is definitely the way I went. That was like Dove Audio, which has probably disappeared, so I probably sent you on a fruitless quest. Question 2: what was your favorite book 5 years ago? Yeah, I'm an old dude, so, you know, if I'm going to go with that, my criteria for that, I'm going to stick with that, especially since, for my next question, what was your favorite duology, trilogy series? And, you know, obviously, you know, French boy wizard, I have to go with In Search of Lost Time, by Marcel Proust, and definitely my translation, which, come on, tell me the name of the translator right on the front. Translated by C.K. Scott Moncrief and Terence Kilmartin, revised by D.J. Enright. That's the version I read, at least this go around. God, at some point I probably should reread it. This is the thing, you know, I love this book, but I've only read it once, which it's suspect. But it is the spoilers. It is on my top top 10. What's the last book you read? That was My Favorite Thing is Monsters, which I got out of the library. See? Here's my invisible library thing. Yeah, which is a graphic novel it's the first volume of this kind of a graphic novel of a girl growing up in Chicago. She draws herself as because it's lined notebook, like it's like the little girl whose story this is telling her own story. So of course it's an aligned notebook, and she draws herself as a werewolf, and it's also got it's stuffed full of stuff. I put a review down below about it, but yes, that was my last book, and that's a good one to have as my last book. Oh, spoiler alert! I'm probably dropping this many months in the future, so I might be speaking to you from beyond the grave because I've died in a horrible plane crash, or, you know, maybe I just got short of videos for that week. One of the two. Either fiery burning crash and hopefully right into the ocean. I didn't feel a thing. At least that's what we'll tell all the relatives. Going on. What's the last book of poetry you read? Same disclaimer as my last answer, but that would be Shakespeare's Sonnets, which would give you a hint of Shaketober, when this was filmed. We're in Preptober actually at the moment. What book most influenced your life? Which is like, it's one of those questions that I don't understand in a way, because I've always had books. There's just always been books in my life. So all the books cumulatively, being a book person is my life. So how do I kind of separate out from that? However, I will say, I didn't learn grammar in high school, in grammar school, in high school. I had zero facility of being able to put together a sentence properly. And I struggled through a little bit of college in my hometown. I moved to Victoria. This is my first move to Victoria, BC, where I now live as well. And I went, okay, I'm going to teach myself grammar. And I got a book, which was basically you go through the book, you teach yourself grammar, you do the exercises. And that taught me how to do grammar and got me through, a BA in English. I didn't want to go on with that, but I can put a sentence together, which I say is probably the most highly influential book that I have read, that I worked my way through. That is it. And you know what? The sad thing is, I don't remember the name of the book. I don't even remember the author. That, dear authors, is ingratitude for you. The most important book of my life, I don't even know who goddamn wrote it, which is sad, is very sad. Oh, yeah. The next question. The book that made you ugly cry. Which, it's a danger with these things. Yeah, there's a poem in here about, there's a poem in here about elephants making love and silently, loudly making love, which is by the poet David McFadden, and he came to UVic, and it's kind of a, shake it off, John. I listened to him read, and it's like, wow, I love that. And he read that poem, read Blood Other Ones. I got the book. It's on my top 10s, and even at the time of my top 10s, I don't think I looked up, what's up with David McFadden? I was kind of like researching because I wanted to refer to the actual poem, and of course, I still can't find the poem. But what I found was a 2014 article about him talking about how he'd been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And you know how it was being somebody who was like a facility with words and all that, and how he was losing his words. I still haven't actually read the article. I will do that. But then I went, and I was like, I was really sad about that. It's like, that's sad. And then I went, oh, wait a minute. I should Wikipedia him because, that's when you find out. Indeed, David McFadden died this year, June 6th. So still making me ugly cry. McFadden, also a very funny, erudite, urbane guy who I was lucky to see in person. So yes, let's leave it at that. Let's leave it at that. Okay, and we can go from that to. By the way, yeah, pick that up. A collection of 100 prose poems inspired by Baudelaire. I'm gonna have to reread this. So yeah, pick that up. Number 8 is a book that made you laugh. One second. Book that made me laugh. The book that made me laugh is by Christopher Moore, and it's out here. And see, I get to be silly. Christopher Moore. It's Fluke by Christopher Moore, which is by no means Christopher Moore's best book, or even his not even his best constructed book. It's the book, but it's actually the funniest book. This book, what does it say? Just why do humpback whales sing? That is the question that has marine biologist Nate Quinn and his crew poking, charting, recording, and photographing very big, wet, gray mammals until the extraordinary day when a whale lifts its tail into the air to display a cryptic message spelled out in foot-high letters. Bite me. Trouble is, Nate's beginning to wonder if he hasn't spent a little too much time in the sun, because no one else in his team saw a thing, not his longtime partner Clay Democulus, nor their saucy young research assistant, not even the spliff-puffing white boy Rasta Kona, nee Preston Applebaum. But later, when a roll of film returns from the lab missing a crucial tail shot and his research facility is trashed, Nate realizes something very fishy is going on. This is a mess of a book. This is a book where it switches genres halfway through. It's one of those classic, like, what the hell? I thought it was one story, but then I'm suddenly in another story books, which you just laugh with. It's very bawdy. Christopher Moore, especially early Christopher Moore, is very bawdy and inappropriate. And God, I'll probably read it now and be highly offended. But at the time, I loved it. And so that's my pick. There's a certain scene of whaleness on a boat, which is highly inappropriate and made me laugh. And it's one of those books I believe my wife was reading in bed and she started laughing. And I was like, what are you laughing at? And so I ended up reading the book and laughing too. So yeah, that's a book that made me laugh. Number 9, a character you'd like to be for the day, which is, that's what I do when I read. This is my one snarky answer to this question. It's like, a character you like to be for a day. It's like, no, a good book makes me that character. A good book involves me in the character's life, immerses me. That's what a successful book does. And so the best ones do, all of them, and I've done it. That's why I love to read. Number 10, a book that was so good that you dreamt about it. For this, I picked by Grand Central Station, I Sat Down and Wept. Also, another Canadian, David McFadden, a Canadian, another Canadian, and it's basically another kind of, it's a prose poem piece about her disastrous relationship with a fellow poet. Very autobiographical. Another one, little nugget there. Which I should also reread because I did enjoy it so much and it was so intense and it's such a nice one. It's funny, the other book that I think about this would be Dream Story, or Traumnovelle in the German, by Arthur Schnitzler, which turned into Eyes Wide Shut. Another book which, these little novellas, they can be very much dream. The Dream Quest of Velvet Bow and other things. So it's interesting that novella is a good size for dream. It's still short enough that you can continue that kind of a dreamlike quality, which would become wearisome over a gigantically long book. A book that you DNF'd, a book that I DNF'd would be Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close by Jonathan Safran Foer, 2005 book, which was his response to 9/11, which. This is I'm someone who I live literally across the continent from it, but I experienced this through the media at the time, and this book pissed me off with this precocious, cloying bleeding child who, apparently, Asperger's syndrome, which has the Asperger's syndrome apparently, and which is supposed to is used as a literary technique, emotional blackmail, just mistaking, that book, I hated. I anger flipped to the end just to make sure I hated it so much. And I watched the movie and I hated the movie so much. The movie was equally as cloying and pretentious and, I did go and read I did actually make a point of going back and reading his nonfiction book, Eating Animals, which is sort of about, here's us eating meat in this industrial complex, and just how bad of a thing that is and how dangerous a thing that is. Didn't turn me into a vegetarian, but I think it's important to know, oh God, that our food system is just terrible. So I read that and I did enjoy that. And I thought that was a good book. So, but oh wow, I really, really, really disliked Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close. Another one that I DNF'd, I'm just going to throw in another one that I actually DNF'd, which was Sapiens, A Brief History of Mankind by Yuval Noah Harari, which I'm sorry if I pronounced your name, but I also didn't finish your book because it seemed like one of these, the art of painfully working out the obvious or the obviously wrong-handed. And yeah, I did not finish. And so that's all I can say is that I just found it plodding and grinding and not really full of much worth for me to actually do anything with. Now, what book are you most excited to read? This is the final question, which I put Astounding, which by this point I may have actually read and, you know, been thrilled, hopefully. Which Astounding, which is subtitled John W. Campbell, Isaac Asimov, Robert A. Heinlein, L. Ron Hubbard, and the Golden Age of Science Fiction, which is sounds like it's going to be mostly kind of a focusing on Campbell, but also just the John W. Campbell was the editor, the shaping force of science fiction in what is considered kind of a golden age, and these were the dudes that were all around him, and they're all in their way kind of interesting dudes. I in the past I've enjoyed Isaac Asimov, who was a very workmanlike writer, but had he was definitely a science fiction guy with the ideas. Robert E. Heinlein, somebody who was very controversial, someone whose books got more and more either crazy or more free thinking as he went along. Somebody who's had a lot of different political things. Seems to be a guy kind of hard to kind of pin down. I still think that Starship Troopers is actually the movie, the one made by RoboCop dude and Total Recall dude, which I cannot remember his name. Might actually be a good valid response or good discussion of turning this book into a fascist state propaganda film is actually a good, like, saying like, this is kind of fascist, but I don't know if actually Robert E. Heinlein was such kind of a tricky guy that he might have actually been slipping in fascist stuff or making you think about like, hey, let's do stuff to make this a fascist state. So yeah, and L. Ron Hubbard, who was a failed science fiction writer who went on to found, who wrote Dianetics and then Scientology, was, you know, very cult-like. And there's also some things about Robert E. Heinlein, who was like this grand man of science fiction, who sounded like he was a little bit of the kind of the dictator of his small circle, not somebody who decided to found a religion or anything like that, but because he was a successful writer. And then, yeah, Isaac Asimov, who I've heard things about Isaac Asimov, which I'll be interested to read. We'll see what we get in this book, if there's anything of that in this book, or if it's just more about, well, I'm interested to read it. So yeah, that is the book I'm most looking forward to at the moment. So yes, this has been the Getting to Know You tag, and I've been rambling on for my usual long length. And I ugly cried at the ugly cry question, which, yeah, that's because I'm a sop. Yeah. All right. More videos later, unless I died in a horrible crash. Hopefully I didn't. More videos later.